Art for the sake of art is an initially attractive romantic idea, but when examined with some context, this ideal can have some negative connotations in certain contexts, primarily concerning fragile topics such as race, if not handled properly. For example, in his essay Criteria of Negro Art, W.E.B. Du Bois highlights two plays, White Cargo and Congo, two plays in which the leading woman character is disgraced in some way. The difference is, in Congo it is a white woman who finds redemption, and is one of the angels of the Lord by the end, while in White Cargo, the leading lady is a black woman who never recovers but rather goes down further and further. Separately, these plays may seem harmless, just art for the sake of art, but a juxtaposition between the two is potentially dangerous as it might lead a viewer to believe a false message that is damaging to African Americans in reality. In this instance, the viewer may build an opinion that an African American, women especially, are not capable of redemption, that they are meant to be cast in lesser roles in media and society. This may even happen subconsciously, for such is the way of art. Unfortunately, this whitewashed society, this racial prejudgment, which deliberately distorts truth and justice, aids this perspective by continuing to have a presence in both media and reality. Its long arm now extends to involve other minority demographics, such as Egyptian, Hawaiian, Native American, etc., in this fight. White people are being cast in roles meant for other ethnicities, like Jake Gyllenhaal as the Prince of Persia, for example, while these demographics are often unjustly cast in lesser roles, if at all. This essay is an attempt to help break this mold by using Leon Gordon's play White Cargo, Leslie Mixpedin's keynote from UT's 2016 Black Matters: The Futures of Black Scholarship and Activism conference, and various films, such as Cameron Crowe's Aloha, Alex Proyas' Gods of Egypt, and Gore Verbinski's The Lone Ranger, as primary examples. Marc Forster's Monsters Ball will later serve as an example of proper representation of racial artistry. Storytellers, including journalists, have a responsibility and a standard to live up to in order to avoid such negative ramifications, although some will argue that having such parameters goes precisely against the principle behind artistic expression. The question then becomes, what is the artist's responsibility? Howard Richards, author of The Social Responsibility of the Artist, says that artists are responsible for improving the public's taste. He goes on to proclaim that in order to be considered an artist, one must have integrity, and that artistic integrity excludes pandering to the public. If this maxim is true, then stories like Leon Gordon's White Cargo, both play and film, do not uphold this standard. The leading lady, Tondeleo, is depicted as a conniving, manipulative, seductive dark-skinned native who uses people like objects, and tries to kill them, because she is bored. This is not only pandering to the public, but exoticizing the other, which further plays on ignorant expectations of audience members, while objectifying women, and exploiting an entire race. White Cargo is an example of art for art's sake, if one can call this work art. Gordon wrote the script in 7 days, never once thinking about the social ramifications, only wanting to get his story out there. But what is the point of this story? It certainly seems to suggest that African American women are devilish and manipulative man-eaters, who will stop at nothing to derail white men and their industry. This is not only demeaning towards African American women, but women in general. What good does this story do for society? Besides fueling negativity towards an entire race and gender, nothing. It's lowbrow, in poor taste, and offensive. White Cargo blatantly advocates for such racist and misogynistic attitudes towards both demographics in real life. There is no artistic integrity here, and critics agree. Most reviews of the film are negative due to its uncomfortably poor handling of race. The actress who portrays Tondeleo, Hedy Lamarr, is a white woman who dons blackface, but is white in the posters for the film, in order to play the temptress. And its misogynistic tones. Tondeleo has a line that advocates the beating of women in order to have a successful marriage. There is no intelligible message that comes from this story other than one of misogyny and racism, and it offers nothing to elevate the audience's taste level. In fact, it arguably lowers it. It is exactly this blatant misuse of artistic freedom that opens the dialogue concerning art for art's sake being potentially damaging if not handled with some care, in other words, the artist's responsibility, while also opening the floodgates for other avenues in the media to capitalize on the fact that censors and executives seem to turn the other cheek in regards to accurate racial portrayals. And thus we see this proliferation of inaccurate portrayals in American film. More recent examples of whitewashing in media can be found in films like Cameron Crowe's 2015 film Aloha, where leading Lady Emma Stone's character is supposed to have Hawaiian and Chinese ancestry, or Alex Proyas' 2016 film Gods of Egypt, where internationally popular white stars like Gerard Butler and Nikolaj Coster-Waldau portray Egyptian gods, or in Gore Verbinski's 2013 movie rendition of the popular TV series, The Lone Ranger, where Johnny Depp is Tonto, the Lone Ranger's Native American counterpart. All flagrant fouls on the racial front. Studio executives somehow still stand behind these decisions, saying things like black doesn't travel or citing the SAG-AFTRA laws which insist that one's race not be part of the qualifications for a job. The argument that white actors are more successful than minorities abroad is absurd. Guy Oyoki, spokesman and co-founder of the Media Action Network for Asian Americans, claims in a criticism to Crowe's Aloha that China has become the second biggest movie market. If you have more Asian Americans in these films, they'd love to see themselves reflected. I think that's a ridiculous argument that overseas would not accept Asian people. Sadly, this whitewashing of other cultures doesn't seem to show a sign of slowing down. Take Rupert Sanders' Ghost in the Shell adaptation for example, which has Scarlett Johansson playing the lead Japanese character, the Major. This casting is an apparent ploy to expand the audience for this immensely popular Japanese anime to a new market, while simultaneously aiming to bump box office numbers. This seems like an unnecessary and counterproductive step. Why try to create an entirely new market when an already expansive fandom already exists? There are plenty of recognizable Asian American actresses that could pull off this character and the box office numbers, while still keeping the integrity of the series intact, which actually allots for a larger audience, as original fans would support a more authentic adaptation. Now, all of this is not to say that African Americans or other minorities have to always be painted in a bright or uplifting light in films or plays. On the contrary, some of the hardest hitting films are impactful precisely because of their gritty realism. This often means that characters have hit rock bottom or live a less than desirable life, but the fact that these characters are more familiar lends a sense of integrity and relatability that is not found in works like White Cargo. Take Marc Forster's 2001 film Monsters Ball, for example. It is a story set in the southern United States that openly tackles racism with Billy Bob Thornton's prison guard character, and encourages a dialogue about damaging societal constructs regarding race as his prejudice is derailed when he meets Halle Berry's character and falls in love with her. While Thornton's character grows as an individual, their interracial relationship is not accepted in the community. This film garnered several awards, not the least being a Best Actress Academy Award to Halle Berry, further marking the first time an African American woman has won the award, because it attacks these difficult subjects in a way that people can relate to in their own lives, especially audience members in the South. Halle Berry is less than glamorous in this role, portraying a poor hard-working widower. But it's precisely this realistic commonality that allows for the relatability, which invokes a real reaction in the viewer. Not this exoticizing of the other that can be seen in White Cargo. This again comes down to the idea of the responsibility of the artist, and how treating something as delicate as racism with respect can actually be beneficial to the real societal argument, while also allowing true artistry to shine through. Films like Monsters Ball spark important conversations in reality. In this instance, the conversations could range from capital punishment and racism to interracial prejudice and outdated societal norms.
NBA superstar LeBron James is talking politics again, and this time it's R-rated. Here's his barely intelligible, not to mention ungrammatical take on President Trump in a new ESPN podcast. There's more gripping insight. ESPN host Carrie Champion asked James and fellow NBA star Kevin Durant about what she described as Trump's racist comments. I'm numb to this commentary, like, must they run their mouths like that? Unfortunately, a lot of kids and some adults take these ignorant comments seriously.
As far as the media goes, the news may be the most damaging outlet for the furthering of racist tendencies in society today. This is especially dangerous because biased reporting leads to false opinions that members of the public viciously defend because a reputable news source told them to.
There is growing outrage tonight after an unarmed African-American teenager was shot and killed by police in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson, Missouri. But there are conflicting reports about what led up to the shooting. NBC's John Yang has the details.
In a heartbreaking but inspiring keynote speech given at UT's Black Matters conference in 2016, Leslie McSpadden, who is Michael Brown's mother, talks about how damaging inaccurate media portrayals can be to real people who are already hurting. The media, she says, will make you question you. This is a blatant abuse of the Fourth Estate that fosters and justifies racism. They feed on the ignorance that seems to be running rampant these days. McSpadden laments, how do you get over something when things aren't getting done? Sadly, the answer is that it's impossible. But that's only if people don't start doing the things that need to be done. For example, like deprivatizing the media in order to severely limit the amount of biased reporting that fuels such bigotry. While the artist is not wholly responsible for shaping the character of the modern man, they do have a responsibility to treat their subject matter with respect. If one is so inclined to write a racially charged story, they best have an authentic mindset, if they have any desire to be taken seriously as an artist. White Cargo does not go down in history as a respectable film, like Monsters Ball will, due to its offensive, misogynistic, and racist tones. Similarly, films like Aloha, Gods of Egypt, and The Lone Ranger suffer because of their insensitive casting of white people in roles meant for Hawaiians, Egyptians, and Native Americans respectively. The artist does have a responsibility to instill at least some aspect of morality in their works in order to invoke morality in their audience members. The ultimate judge has got to be you, and you have got to build yourselves up into that wide judgment, which is going to enable the artist to have his widest chance for freedom, Du Bois says. If filmmakers uphold their integrity with casting choices and people keep speaking out about the inauthenticity of racial representation in films, one day, the industry will have no choice but to change its standards to allow more diversification for all ethnicities.